Tell us about your Old Firm experiences, because I mean Rangers fans to this day, revere you for your attitude, or the attitude that you showed well throughout your 3 years at Ibrox, but particularly you seem to be right up for the Old Firm games. And obviously everybody talks about Robbie Keane, who's probably still quivering away somewhere every time that that video comes on Twitter or whatever. Why were you so up for those particular games?
Just think it suited me really, Davey. I'd like to think I was a big game player really, and I relished them. I loved the build up. I loved the intensity. Went up a slight notch in training, and obviously the media magnitude for that week, the build up, the interviews, and obviously it's far bigger now, because there's obviously more resources and social media and more club media probably now than there ever been. But I just relished them really, Davey, and I also understood quite quickly in my Rangers career that second best was no good. So when they games come around, and 9 times out of 10, season to season, the kind of 12 points that are available between you and your arch rivals are really important on where the title ends up going. So, and I also felt just the way I kind of evolved as a player, that me being quite aggressive and early on in games, and Jack will tell us, because you had the conversations, Jack, with Walter, you used to say, I knew that if Tomo started off the game well within the first few minutes, the first 5 to 10 minutes, he says, I knew the team would win. I knew the team would do well. And that was probably without really having loads and loads of in-depth conversations with Walter on how that looked. I sensed that was important for the team. Sometimes the game was flat. Sometimes it wouldn't happen until 20, 25, 30 minutes into games. But when the games come around, I felt as though it was... And I still think the players... You sometimes feel a wee bit awkward talking about it, but I still think the players... Listen, Scotty's done it for a decade and a half. Do you know what I mean? Putting himself out and obviously kind of for the other side of the city as such. You know what I mean? But you cannot tell me that if a Celtic fan's listening to me talking, maybe dislikes you personally or whatever, or the team that you play for, like the kind of... The battle, that midfield engine room, the kind of getting on top and getting the lion's share of being on top was so important in the games. And listen, the game's different eras, it changes, it looks different, the goals are different, the personnel's different. But I think the kind of winning the kind of battle is just as important as any part of the game still to this day. So I felt that was something that I brought to the team, and I felt it helped the team, and it was just something that naturally evolved really. And it's humbling to think that when I go back to any events at the club and how much the club have looked after me over the years since I've retired, that you hopefully are reasonably thought of within the fan base.
Tell me this, Tom, because I'm interested in the kind of personality clash between yourself and Barry, and I can imagine that you'd be a little bit more low key in the dressing room 10 minutes before you went out into an Old Firm game. But I've spoken to Barry about what he used to do. He was in fighting himself in the mirror. Who you looking at? Then he'd go padding about and listen to the noise outside the dressing room. And you could just, you get a sense of him almost building himself up into a dervish situation before he goes out into that. What was that like to witness, to see, and did you look at this and go, I mean, what the f are we getting here? I mean, it must, because it's completely different from your own persona.
Listen, but I've said it on the record numerous times. Barry for me was the best Scottish player, bar none really, and probably has been for the last couple of decades. He's just an unbelievable player, an unbelievable leader, brilliant captain, and he carried the kind of team on his shoulders really, and any negativity and any disappointment, Barry was at the forefront of taking that on the chin. But when it comes to the games, he just, I suppose, similar to yourself, when you're a boyhood fan of a club and you get to play for them, and you play in Edinburgh derbies, and you look forward to trying to beat Hearts or whatever it may be, and your pals are maybe some Hearts fans, some Hibs fans, the kind of bragging rights, etc., etc. We're all the same as what people are in any walk of life really. And Barry was, as you mentioned, listen, I think everybody will know that me and Barry are slightly different characters when it comes to. I'd quite like to sit in the background, do you know what I mean, and be quite quiet and quite hopefully unassuming, do you know what I mean? But maybe a wee bit different when I walked down the tunnel and onto that pitch. But Barry for me was the one that all our young players looked up to, and how he conducted himself and how he trained, and it wasn't just about the Old Firm game when it came along or that 90 minutes. It was a collective, do you know what I mean? Like how he prepared, how he daft things, how he you know what I mean, would sit. Barry was the only player that used to, and none of us were brave enough to do it, to be honest. Barry was probably the only player that used to sit with his shorts and t-shirt on before the manager had pulled the chart back in the team. The rest of us used to sit with our blue shirts on, sweat pissing off us, hoping that we were going to get a game. But you naturally watch Jacko, but he's, to be fair, I never really clocked him kind of growling or doing anything untoward before these games. His kind of ritual and his routine, for me, was every game's a big game really for Rangers. I know that's a bit cliche because when Old Firm games come around, the magnitude of them and the rivalry and the just know how important these games are to people. Obviously, it is a slightly bigger game, but the way he conducted himself and the way he was, and us young players naturally wanted a bit of what Barry was getting. He was, I'm guessing, talking about money, he would have been the highest paid player at the club. He was the captain of the club. He was the biggest name. He was captain of the country at the time. So us young players wanted to try and emulate or try and get close to what Barry was really achieving. So. Just a brilliant lad, Jacko. Really, do you know what I mean? A brilliant captain. Love him to bits. Loved playing with him. Loved our ding dongs in training. And as you say, I think you would need to be an idiot not to realise that me and Barry are slightly different in our different ways.
That day that Morris Hedo scored the last minute goal, is, you know, it's the same game as your challenges, a couple of your challenges on Robbie Keane. What did you go out into that game with the intention of, well, he's one of their men, so I'm going to take out their chief? Or did that just evolve as the game went on? Because it was obviously early on, wasn't it?
Nah, it just evolved, Davey, really is. I'd love to tell you that I stood in the tunnel growling and I was doing this, and I probably was growling in the tunnel, but it was... Walter had always used to mark my card about like starting sharp and imposing myself and sometimes give me a wee kick up the backside to tell me that if I never, I would maybe be sitting next to him. So it was like I was always thoughtful that he obviously thought that was quite an important thing. And obviously, anyone that's watched that clip a million times like I have, and probably a lot of my pals have maybe clocked up the rest of the views. The actual goal, Lee McCulloch actually runs towards Kamara, and Kamara flicks it round the corner. I actually run to go towards Kamara. So I'd love to tell you that Robbie was in my sights or whatever. He wasn't. It didn't really matter to me who it was. I just wanted to try and impose myself in the game, and the reaction off the back of it, I think, naturally for us being competitive, what Robbie said to me, I can't remember what he said to me, but he pulled my jersey down, obviously, and then I've kind of pushed him. And I didn't push him, to be honest, hand on my heart. If he doesn't pull my jersey down towards him as he's getting up, I'm not pushing him off me. I've just tackled him up and ready to go again. But because he pulled me, and I've had a wee push at him, you've now got a wee personal duel on the pitch, you know what I mean? So I took it upon myself after he had called me what he had called me, that like I was making a beeline for him, really. Do you know what I mean? And every time I got an opportunity to go and imposing my physicality on him and getting a chance to put my foot in anywhere around his feet, I was taking it, really. And was it a defining factor in the game? It wasn't. You know, Celtic, every game that I played against Celtic, they had top players, top team, and the games were on a knife edge. I can only really think. And by the way, I was lucky to beat them on numerous occasions, but and we well beat them a couple of times, but the games were still really close. They had brilliant players, top teams. Stracco, obviously the manager for the Lion's Share when I was there, and Robbie was a brilliant player. Really, just I suppose unluckily for him a wee bit, and luckily for me that it's caught the Rangers fans' imagination. But to me, I made day tackles every other week, really, and it's. Yeah. I get on that occasion it looks a bit bigger and better than it was, but for me, I was I wanted to win.